this week has seen more protests in Algeria after the country's speaker, Abdelkader Ben Salah, succeeded long-term president Abdelaziz Bouteflika, who resigned last week. Plus, Sudan's police have ordered officers not to intervene against thousands of protesters who are demonstrating outside the army headquarters in the capital. This is Africa Focus. Here's a peek of the stories set for today.
Bracing for war, Libyan government of National Accord Forces announced military operation as the Libyan National Army heads to Tripoli. Bereaved families blame Boeing after Ethiopia crash report. Nigerian artist recycles paper to make decorative items.
I'm Lenny Rashid, and our sign language interpreter is Teresia Washira. Before we get into the main stories, let's take a look at the news that made the headlines around the continent.
3 people died and more than 30 people were injured in a twin suicide blast in the northeastern Nigerian city of Maiduguri. 2 female bombers late Saturday detonated the explosive among a crowd in Monadalti on the outskirts of the city, the birthplace of the Boko Haram jihadist group. The scene of the bombings, a popular nighttime venue for residents, has been repeatedly targeted by Boko Haram suicide attacks. The area houses a sprawling camp for thousands of people displaced by Boko Haram violence. The attacks there were largely blamed on the Boko Haram faction loyal to long-time leader Bakar Sekau, notorious for suicide attacks on civilian targets including schools, mosques and motor parks. Another faction affiliated to the Islamic State focuses on attacks against military targets. Boko Haram's decade-long time violence has killed 27,000 people in the northeast and displaced another 1.8 million people from their homes, creating a dire humanitarian crisis. The conflict has spread to neighboring Niger, Chad and Cameroon, prompting a regional military response to combat the jihadist group. The head of the UN mission in Congo warned on Saturday that the Democratic Republic of Congo's new presidency must start delivering on its electoral promises and integrate armed groups ready for political change. Felix Tshisekedi's victory in the 30th December elections, while marred by widespread accusation of fraud, led to the first transfer of power via the ballot box in DRC. Safeguarding Congo's fragile security situation will be one of the key tasks for Tshisekedi, who has yet to form a government and deliver the final act of the transition. In some provinces of Congo, armed groups have decided to lay down their arms, with Kasai, Ituri, Tanganyika, and even some parts of the eastern province most stricken by violence, Kivu experiencing some relative peace. Tshisekedi has promised to give impetus to the fight against corruption and the efficiency of the judicial system. The United Nations will never give up supporting the Libyan people, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres told news conferences at Jordan's Baka Palestinian refugee camp on Saturday. The UN is determined to hold Libya's national conference on possible elections on time despite Eastern forces advancing on the capital Tripoli in the escalation of the conflict. G7 foreign minister warned Eastern Libyan military commander Khalifa Haftar to halt his thrust on Tripoli, menacing the internationally recognized government based there or face possible international action. The United Nations aims to stage a conference in the southwestern town of Gadamez on 14th to 16th of April to weigh elections as a way out of the country's prolonged factional anarchy, which has seen Islamic militants establish a toehold in some areas. Tunisian President Beji Caid Essebsi has said that he did not want to run for a second term in presidential elections expected this year, despite his party calls for the 93-year-old to stand. Mass protests that toppled ailing President Abdelaziz Bouteflika in Algeria have stirred the opposition in Tunisia, and social media campaigns have begun rejecting a second term for Essebsi. The Tunisian constitution, adopted by parliament in 2014, gives him the right to run for 2 terms. In December 2014, Essebsi won the first free presidential election, becoming Tunisia's first freely and directly elected president. No prominent figures so far declared their candidacy for the presidency this year. Essebsi, a former parliamentary speaker, under Ben Ali, has been the dominant figure in the North African country since his election in 2014, despite constitutional rules limiting his powers to defense and foreign relations. But he has lost influence since Prime Minister Youssef Chaded took office as Prime Minister in 2016.
United Nations-backed government fighters prepared for further clashes on Tuesday, loading rolls of bullets into ammunition belts and setting up defensive positions on the outskirts of Tripoli. Casualties from the battle have been mounting, and medical facilities reported 47 people killed and 181 wounded in recent days as Eastern Libyan National Army forces, led by Khalifa Haftar, seek to take Tripoli from the internationally recognized government of Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj.
Libya's government of national accord announced Operation Volcano of Anger on Sunday, designed to defend the capital from Libyan National Army forces loyal to military commander Khalifa Haftar. LNA forces, which control the east and recently expanded to southern Libya, last week launched an advance on Tripoli in the west, home to the internationally recognized LNA government.
These efforts have resulted in forcing the aggressors to retreat and the liberation of Bridge 27 west of Tripoli, the airport in Rabea Valley south of Tripoli, and in capturing a large number of aggressors and in seizing their vehicles and equipment.
Haftar's offensive has taken the UN by surprise, undermining plans to find agreement on a roadmap for elections to resolve the protracted instability in Libya.
We are pledging to our people that we will preserve the civil state. We're inviting the delusional and brainwashed to surrender their weapons. The battle is over and will not allow the militarization of the nation. Libya will not be a military state. Its military will only have loyalty to God and then the nation.
Haftar, who casts himself as a foe of Islamist extremism but is viewed by opponents as a new dictator in the mold of former leader Muammar Gaddafi, enjoys the backing of Egypt and the United Arab Emirates, which sees him as a bulwark against Islamists and have supported him militarily, according to the UN reports. The offensive intensifies a power struggle that has fractured the oil and gas producer since the 2011 overthrow of Gaddafi.
Today, the Libyan armed forces are announcing the commencement of the Volcano of Anger operation. This is to purify all the Libyan cities of the aggressors and those who are against legitimacy.
On Sunday, Haftar's LNA forces were regrouping to travel west towards Tripoli, where battles with forces of the Government of National Accord are ongoing. The LNA claims to have reached the southern outskirts and taken its former international airport, though the Tripoli military officials deny this.
On the 10th of March 2019, Ethiopian Flight 302 crashed at Bishoftu near Addis Ababa 6 minutes after takeoff. Almost a month after the crash, Ethiopian investigators have urged Boeing to review its flight control system and said pilots of the state carrier Ethiopian Airlines had carried out proper procedures in the first official findings on the crash. Boeing's Chief Executive Officer Dennis Millenberg has admitted that the company now knows that a chain of events caused the disaster. This admission, though, has come too late for people that lost their loved ones in the crash.
Standing by the gravesite at the backyard of his family house in central Kenyan town of Nakuru, Quindos Karanja Jr. looks at the pictures of 5 family members who died in the Ethiopian airline plane crash last month. Quindos' mother, Anne Wangoi Karanja, was traveling with her daughter and 3 young grandchildren on board of the doomed Boeing 737 MAX when it hit the ground, killing all the 157 people on board 6 minutes later after taking off from Addis Ababa. The March 10 disaster, similar with another 737 MAX crash in Indonesia last October, in which 189 people died, and which has led to the worldwide grounding of the Boeing's flagship model.
I heard my dad say he's not angry with Boeing, but I remember Boeing was supposed to do an upgrade. They called it an optional upgrade, and they were charging the airlines $80,000 for the upgrade. But when now this happened, they are doing it for free. So my anger comes in because they are putting profits before life. Okay, I wish they had done this and they not said it's optional for the airlines. At least maybe you could have averted this tragedy. But yeah, it's good that Dennis came up, the CEO of Boeing came up and owned it up. But all we want is before these planes go back to the skies, they make sure everything has been taken care of. We don't have to have such a tragedy because it's a pain. it's very painful.
A preliminary report into the crash that has shaken the aviation world, published on Thursday, showed that the jet hit excessive speeds and was forced downwards by a wrongly triggered automation system as pilots wrestled to regain control.
I think also they need to share the same with the families of the victims, because it's very important. It's them who are grieving, it's them who needs to know, and at least moving forward, we need to also feel like part of this investigation. So we feel like we're being treated like everyone else, which is okay, because this is a national issue and a world international issue, but also at least we need to be more involved in the investigations.
Chicago-based Boeing, which is also target of lawsuits over the Indonesian crash, has been working on a software fix and a new training guidelines for the MAX.
At a camp beneath mist-shrouded volcanoes, dozens of men wander around, pondering their future lives. Some of these ex-militiamen took part in the killings during Rwanda's horrific 1994 genocide against the Tutsi minority. They have now returned to Rwanda after years in exile and live in a camp in order to become safely reintegrated into society.
Joseph is a former member of the FDLR, a rebel militia which includes soldiers who took part in the Rwandan genocide. When the 1994 genocide was brought to an end, the group was forced to flee Rwanda into neighboring DRC. But after a quarter of a century haunting Congo's forests, Joseph was exhausted and wanted to give up the fight. He arrived at this camp 3 months ago.
I am among the first to have laid down arms voluntarily. I wanted to promote peace in the Great Lakes region, especially in Congo and Rwanda.
Joseph is one of over 1,500 former FDLR fighters who returned to Rwanda in November 2018 after Congo refused to allow them to stay any longer. He was happy to come home, but sad that it was not the result of dialogue between the Rwandan government and opposition groups.
From this dialogue, they should have found proper return conditions, dignified and secure. But we then learned that this dialogue did not happen, because Rwanda did not judge it necessary to participate in or organize this dialogue.
In this camp in Mutubo, 100 kilometers northwest of the capital Kigali, the former rebels are learning how to reintegrate into society. They receive civic education classes aimed at combating the bloody ideologies that led to the genocide. 47-year-old ex-FDLR fighter Focus Turingiyimana is training to be a tailor. He urges his former FDLR comrades still fighting in the bush to come back home.
They should come back to the country to work for their own development. They are only wasting time, and it will do them no good.
Rwanda's Demobilization and Reintegration Commission, which runs the Mutubo camp, has handled 11,000 fighters from rebel forces since 1997. Each group spends 3 months in the camp before they can return to families and homes they left decades before. They are then also issued identity papers and a one-off payment of $66 to start their new lives.
Hitting the surf, disabled South African surfers thrilled at catching a wave.
We're about to pay some bills. Don't touch that dial. Keep it switch. Welcome back. In case you just joined us, you're watching Africa Focus. Today's sign language interpreter is Teresia Washira. Now, there are about 8 genocide memorial sites in the country of Rwanda. One of these is Gisozi Memorial Site, which features a display house, a library, a cemetery, and a photo gallery. The facility is intending to provide additional history about the country to the whole world. 25-year-old Alain Uwase Turatsizine is a guide at Kigali Genocide Memorial. She hopes that the site can be a place of reflection for all in the world.
Every weekday with Arlene Uwase to Rancize Gets Up, the memory of where 60 members of a family are buried after the murders lingers in her mind. The quiet woman with long braids is a guide at Rwanda's Genocide Museum, a memorial to the killing that claimed 800 Tutsi and moderate Hutu lives after the then president's plane was shot down on April 6, 1994. Uwase, who turns 25 on April 5th, was 2 days old when the bloodshed began.
Almost my whole mom's family are buried here, so standing here, it gives me I'm really, it's an honor. I'm very, how would I say it? It's an honor to me to be here.
The Gisozi Memorial Site is the final resting place of more than 250,000 of people killed during the 100 days of genocide. Uwase wants visitors to see the memorial as a place of respect and learning, not bitterness and recrimination. UNICEF estimated more than 300,000 children were killed. Most were hacked or beaten to death.
The memorial room dedicated to kids is very touching. Every time that I enter the room, I'm never the same person when I get out. And there's this video in the museum where people were killed. I would ask myself, how can one person decide to kill innocent people? I mean, I would say the whole museum, the whole memorial, it's never easy. It's never easy to get in the museum, but I do that every day.
After the killings ended, shattered communities had to rebuild themselves as survivors sometimes returned to live next to those complicit in the killings of their families. According to Uwase, Rwanda is now focused on the future. While some of its neighbors stagnate in corruption, the small East African nation stands out for its ease of doing business and rising investment.
In one way or another, we had to find a way to reconcile. Not because we had to, but because we wanted peace, because I wanted peace. Not because those who killed my family, for those who took people's lives deserved to be forgiven, but because I deserved peace.
Although there is still poverty in the parts of the country, downtown Kigali is full of new buildings, lining its clean and well-kept streets. Many visiting business people come to the memorial. One recent visitor was Nikolai Costa-Waldau, who stars in the hit series Game of Thrones.
Solid waste management is one of the most pressing environmental challenges faced by urban and rural areas of Nigeria. The country, with a population exceeding 170 million, is one of the largest producers of solid waste in Africa. However, some young entrepreneurs are coming up with ingenious solutions. Funmi Adubi is an artist from Lagos and specializes in paper craft. Adubi can shape flowers and other decorative items from recycled paper.
Funmi Adubi is leading a class session at an art studio in Lagos, Nigeria, where she trains students on paper craft, showing them how to shape flowers and other decorative items from recycled paper. The self-taught artist says she wanted to make good use of unwanted paper and develop her passion for handcrafted decor as a means of artistic expression. Paper craft is a stylized art form that uses paper as its primary artistic medium, requiring a range of techniques such as folding, cutting, molding, and layering to achieve the desired result.
The main story behind it is practically recycling. Instead of trashing paper, like the benefits of or the uses of paper, you can actually use old magazines and make flowers out of them. You can quill, you can frame them, you can use them to make boxes, you can use them to make decorative pieces for your homes. So it's basically about recycling and not trashing them.
Funmi started her craft in 2016 after selling off her confectionery business. The artist shapes papers with various colors and textures and later binds them together with glue to form her decorative designs. Funmi says it can take up to 15 days to make complex designs. The 29-year-old sells her products to event companies and individual clients. She also uses social media to market her work. The entrepreneur also makes customized designs to fit different client needs.
The Nigerians are actually adapting to it. Like, whenever they see my flowers, they're like, wow, is this really paper? Can I touch it? What materials do you use? As in, how did you do this? And that's why I train people too, to make them know that you can actually make something beautiful out of just papers. And yeah, for event planners, a lot of them are fascinated with the fact that you can actually use them for events. It's something new. So it's really helping their business too, because when they use for one client, another client says, oh, I love what you did with those flowers and I want you to do it for my event. And it goes on and on like that.
Today, Funmi's artwork is part of props for a baby photo shoot.
Challenges I first encountered was actually convincing people to buy the craft. But over time, when I was consistent and I didn't stop, people understood that this is actually beautiful, and I had to post the various uses of paper flowers, not just limited to backdrops. You can actually use them to beautify your wall space in your homes, your office space, decorate your child's wall space, revamp your office, events. There are so many uses. You can use them as centerpiece for events.
Funmi's displays cost $40 and above, depending on the complexity of the design. The artist says she wants to experiment with more paper craft techniques and grow her services to reach more clients in the country.
Muizenberg Beach in Cape Town is a world hotspot for surfers. Now the Surf Emporium Surf School is teaching both adults and children with disabilities on how to find their stoke on the waves. Let's take a look.
A year ago, a steep wave slammed the intrepid 75-year-old into the shore at a Cape Town beach, breaking her neck. Now a crowd of volunteers and coaches cheer her on before moving in to turn her boat around and push it back to catch the next wave.
And to be in the water and to feel the movement again, it's really special.
On the beach, South African surf champion Roxy Davis briefs the next group of volunteers. Since 2016, Davis Surf School, a surf emporium, has been hosting training clinics to introduce people with both physical and mental disabilities to the thrill of catching a wave.
I love it. It doesn't matter whether you are an able-bodied surfer or somebody with a disability. I just love watching that wave after wave, the passion and the stoke. So whether it's their 10th wave or 10th time surfing, or it's their very first time, whether they are riding foamies in the front line or way out at the back, that joy and the stoke is the same, and it gives me the same goosebumps watching each wave at each session.
People with disabilities have been surfing for decades, but it wasn't until the International Surfing Association started the first Adaptive Surfing World Championship in 2015 that the sport began building momentum. After a car accident when he was 5 years old, Smith's right arm became paralyzed. Doctors suggested he takes up surfing. The paddling, they said, will encourage him to use both arms. At the first Adaptive World Championship, Smith took silver in his division. At the most recent event in December last year, he won gold. Now a technical advisor to National Body Surf South Africa, Smith aims to increase the number of adaptive surfers, not only showing people with disabilities that surfing is possible, but making it practically accessible to them. For Davis, the learning curve going from surf school to adaptive surf school has been steep. Mental disabilities are not currently recognized in any of the official categories of competitive adaptive surfing. But Davis has an all-inclusive approach at her clinics. Back at the beach, the coaches are showing Chloe Murdoch how to position her autistic son Finn on a board. Murdoch was concerned the waves seemed a bit too big and a bit too strong. But within minutes, her 9-year-old was cruising along unassisted, lying down on the board.
We felt like we were flying. It was amazing. They showed us how to handle him in the water, how to actually hold the surfboard and how to surf behind him, and it was an amazing experience.
On Africa Focus, we love hearing from you, so make sure you get interactive with us on our various social media pages. Remember, you can view this program along with a wide array of other programs on DSTV channel 268. On behalf of the entire team here on Africa Focus, thank you for keeping us company on this exciting journey. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.